name is Henry Poetker. I love children. I know children love stories. And I want to tell you some stories. We're going to call this program Grandpa's Stories to Children. When I went to India the first time with my wife and 2-year-old daughter, we were living in a place that was a little bit elevated. You might call it a small hill. And you know, during the rainy season, then the holes in the ground, they fill up and the snakes start coming out. And so during the month of July, we usually had more snakes than we had in other months. One month I counted, and we had an average of one poisonous snake that we saw every day. And so I'm going to tell you a couple of snake stories. Story number 1. India has some very nice trees, but I'll tell you something special. Some of the trees, too special, they really smell good. Oh, I just love them. And they're called Day King and Night Queen. I decided to plant one of those Day King trees right beside the house. One day, a friend came over to visit, and I said, "Come over here and see this Day King tree." While showing it to him, I took my hand and I was just circulating it in the leaves of the tree that was at the time only 4 feet high yet. All of a sudden he shouted, he says, "Hold it!" And I jerked back my hand. I said, "What's the trouble?" He's just 2 inches below your hand. There is a little snake, a poisonous snake, that is coiled up there. I was sure glad he told me, but you know, God had protected me from being bitten. Story number 2. I was planning to go to the city, and I took a hold of the tongue of a trailer, and I was going to attach it to the car. My friend was visiting again, and when I took a hold of the handle, he says, "Drop it!" So I dropped it. I said, "What's the trouble?" He says, "There's a snake curled up in that handle. It's a U-shaped handle." I was so glad he told me again. I could have been bitten, but I guess I took a hold of the handle far enough away from the head so the snake didn't bite me in that short of a time. And how often we have run into dangers, and that God protects us. India has many palm trees. I don't know why the farm people do that, but they split the tree just from the top to the bottom, make 2 halves out of it, and they take the pulp out of it. And then they attach the 2 parts of the trunk together again. But when they bring them together, they don't really fit very close. Often there's open places, half an inch or an inch like that, something like that. We had a tree like that lying in the yard, and a friend came over to visit, and I said to my friend, "Let's take a seat here on this tree and we can talk." We talked about 20 minutes. And then one of the servants came over and said to me, "Hey, don't you know that there's a snake going back and forth in that hollow part of the tree you're sitting on, and you don't know it?" We got up. We were so glad that the snake had not stuck its nose up and bitten us. We could have been bitten, but how often we are protected from these kind of dangers. These stories that I've been telling you have been very, very short. One big Indian family was sitting around the supper table and having their meal, when the hostess said, in a very controlled voice, she told the servants, "Please bring a jug of or a pot of milk and place it about 1.5 feet from my chair, okay?" Of course, The missionary who was visiting, he knew right away there must be a snake somewhere. The servants came and brought the milk, and sure enough, in about a minute or so, the snake uncurled from the leg of the hostess and came toward the milk. Of course, the servants were ready for it, and they immediately slew it. But can you imagine if that hostess had in any way shown excitement, or in any way, the way the Lord made any special moves, that snake would certainly have bitten and she would have died. But I think she too prayed when that snake was on her leg. God, please protect me, and he did.